is talking here. He's confessing the majesty of the Creator. And I'll just start with verse 7 here as you're turning there, just to kind of set a little bit of context. He says, Job writes, speaking of God, he stretches out the north over the void and hangs the earth on nothing. That verse there, that he hangs the earth on nothing, has fascinated me for years. Having traveled around it for several thousand times, I can tell you there are no strings attached. Verse 8, he goes on, he binds up the waters in his thick clouds, and the cloud is not split open under them. He covers the face of the full moon and spreads over it his cloud. And then this verse that Dr. Lyle mentioned, he has inscribed a circle on the face of the waters at the boundary between light and darkness. That's a perfect description of what we call the Terminator. And I don't know, go home and think about this a little bit. Try to imagine from the perspective of being on the surface of the earth and describing this image in that way. I mean, it gives testimony to the inspiration of Scripture, and it gives almost a God perspective, if you will, or a perspective from off the planet. There's another place, skipping ahead just a few chapters, in Job 38, that describes the same thing, but in a different way. And this, in Job 38, it's a very humbling place in Scripture, and if you haven't looked at it recently, I encourage you to go look at it tonight in context. It is God speaking back to Job, and it's God rebuking Job, and it's to paraphrase, it's who are you to describe me or to say who I am? Who are you, man? It's a very humbling context. God describes this Terminator also here, Job 38 and verse 12. He says, have you commanded the morning since your days began? This is God speaking. And caused the dawn to know its place. We can predict very precisely where the dawn is going to be at any point in time. I mean, God has precisely ordered all things to include the dawn. Verse 13, that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth and the wicked be shaken out of it. And then verse 14 is this marvelous description. It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like a garment. When he says like a clay under a seal, it's a cylinder seal that was used in ancient times to roll across soft clay to give authenticity to the document or to whatever was being sealed. And so he likens the rolling of the dawn around the earth to a seal over clay. A marvelous description of what you can see from this vantage point. Some other examples. Here's another, just after sunset. Again, you can see the layers of the atmosphere. This one's with a bigger lens, pulled a little bit closer. Or this mysterious view, and I'm going to go to the next one because I think the next one shows up here in the screen a little bit better. We call them noctilucent clouds. We typically see them over the North Pole looking north over the, we don't fly over the North Pole, but we can see almost to the pole through the atmosphere. See them over the north in December, and over the South Pole typically in June. So those points in the season of the year, not too many people understand what they are. They're very high in the atmosphere. As you can see, they're above the clouds, but the theory is that they're made up of some kind of ice crystals. How they got there, nobody really knows. But a very mysterious view that inspires awe and wonder and invokes our curiosity. I read one internet theory that it was produced by the space shuttle exhaust. But then when I scrolled down in the search engine and got to another article, the first sighting of noctilucent clouds were in the late 1800s. So something didn't jive there. A lot like what we've been talking about today, right? The surface of the earth also invokes awe and wonder. Many of us have been to places like the Grand Canyon, and so you have a taste of what I'm talking about, to be able to view the earth out the window. This is the Colorado River upstream from the Grand Canyon in Utah. Just a very beautiful array of nature. This is the Grand Canyon right here from space with a big lens. Here's an oblique view of the Grand Canyon with a fresh snow cover on the rim of the canyon. in late 2009, early 2010. I don't remember if it was in December or January, but a beautiful array of and I put this in here because many of us can relate to being on the rim and seeing the canyon. This is a view from orbit. By the way, there's some very interesting research that ICR has, I think, about the formation of the Grand Canyon, which I would encourage you to consider. Mount St. Helens, another topic. Dr. Morris, John Morris, and Dr. Austin, maybe you are familiar with a book that they wrote on Mount St. Helens. It has also fascinated me, not only from that content, but also from its view of orbit. It blowing the side of the mountain out in our lifetime in the spring of 1980. You can see the mountain, and just to the left of the mountain, up a little bit, you can see Spirit Lake. It shows up as a white there. The Alps, just another example of beauty on the planet. And another glacier. This one's in Pakistan. Glaciers become one of my favorite things to photograph around the earth. They have a variety and a beauty that's unique to different regions of the earth. And again, this one is in northern Pakistan. Here's one in South America in the Patagonia region. Very unique in its formation. You can see the broken off icebergs in the lake off to the right edge of the screen. Water features also became one of my favorite subjects to photograph. This is an atoll in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, not too far from the equator. A little research after my flight, I found out there are several hundred people that live here. Most of them are descendants from shipwreck crew from, I think, as I recall, a couple or several centuries ago. The Florida Keys. Here you can recognize that terrain. You see the Florida in the upper part of the screen, just right of center, and then the Keys sweeping out in that arc down to the lower left corner of the screen. This is with a fairly wide angle lens. Just to the east of the Florida Keys are the Bahamas, and some of you perhaps have been there. You know what beauty is represented there. And they became my favorite coral in all of the earth. Just incredible beauty, incredible harmony in color and pattern, such as you see here in this close-up view of one of the larger reef patterns in the Bahamas. And here's another one even closer. It doesn't look real, does it? It looks like maybe a watercolor painting you might see hanging in a museum somewhere. But this is how it looks from above. And here's even a closer view of that same coral. In all of this, we see beauty, we see splendor, we see order, and I'm just introducing that concept to you here. You see harmony. It is pleasing to our eyes. We like to see it, we like to study it, we like to ponder it. This is a riverbed in northern India coming out of the Himalaya Mountains. Or another one, this one is in right on the border between China and Russia. You can see perhaps a floodplain here with a lot of tributaries, a little bit of civilization if you look close at the photograph, probably growing crops in the plains and getting flooded out seasonally, I'm sure. Or this riverbed in central part of Australia. Australia is very unique in the world. It looks like the surface of what you might imagine another planet to look like. Very arid, very unique in its characteristics. This unique river delta is on the island of Madagascar, off the coast of Africa. It's a very popular thing for astronauts over the years to photograph because it stands out with its redness that it comes from the clay that the river picks up upstream and washes downstream and then flows into the Indian Ocean. Niagara Falls, I mentioned seasons go by. Here's Niagara Falls in the wintertime. And you can pick out the falls there right in the center of the screen, the details of the falls. Again, this was with a large handheld lens, about 800 millimeters in size. So here's the globe again. So a wide angle looking down the St. Lawrence Seaway from the northeast corner of Canada over across to the southwest, across the United States. So I just sort of an appendix here to the talk. I've touched on this, but now I want to say it explicitly. This is not really a direct observation of what I've been showing you, but it is if we look at ourselves and consider our response to this. It tells us something that we already know, but it tells us something about ourselves. As I said earlier, we love to look at things like this. We love to wonder about them. They attract our curiosity. We like to contemplate them. I would contend that we contemplate these things and how we contemplate them give testimony to this.